When the German army marched into Paris in June 1940, the city didn't burn. There was no grandstand at the barricades. The tanks and soldiers simply rolled past the architecture, completely unopposed. They behaved with a deliberate, unnerving correctness. These soldiers spent their leave time sightseeing in Notre Dame, handing chocolates to children and offering their seats to elderly women on the metro. But beneath the surface, the Germans were already draining the country. Extreme rationing set in, basic supplies vanished, and Parisians were left standing in long, bleak queues for bread, while their agricultural and industrial resources were shipped directly to Berlin. The new French government, operating out of the spa town of Vichy under Marshal Pétain, embraced the surrender. Pétain established an authoritarian regime that pursued a policy of active collaboration, rounding up political targets to satisfy Nazi demands. Caught between the polite veneer of the German troops and the betrayal of their own government, the French public froze. A paralyzing wait-and-see attitude settled over the city. Any obvious political opposition was already neutralized. Nearly 2 million French men were locked away in prisoner-of-war camps, and known activists were being aggressively hunted by the police. But the occupiers made a severe miscalculation. Bound by their own rigid, traditionalist worldview, the German command did not perceive women as capable political operators. The Nazis viewed them almost entirely as wives, mothers, or romantic interests. This blind spot left a door open for a specific demographic. Working-class women stepped into the vacuum, like Cécile, a teenage furrier's apprentice, Betty, a secretary, and Charlotte, a typist. For these women, invisibility served as a functional tactical shield. Their gender allowed them to move through a militarized city while remaining completely overlooked by the men hunting for enemies of the Reich. The pushback started small. In the dead of night, teenagers tore down German propaganda posters. People scribbled the letter V for victory on blackout paper and city walls. University students turned defiance into a game of visual puns. A student might stroll confidently past a German checkpoint carrying a simple wooden fishing rod. In French, a fishing rod is a goal, a silent, mocking tribute to the exiled General de Gaulle. These quiet jokes escalated into highly coordinated underground operations. Professors and students operated hidden mimeograph machines, printing illegal intellectual newsletters like L'Université Libre, and smuggling them into the lockers at train stations. These early paper acts broke the psychological spell of the occupation. By circulating these newsletters, they proved to an isolated public that defiance was possible. This map shows France's division. The Germans occupied the north and west, while the collaborationist Vichy government controlled the south. To keep the resistance alive, couriers had to constantly cross this heavily guarded demarcation line, smuggling weapons, funds, and intelligence between the two territories. To protect the network, they implemented a strict 3-person cell structure. A member only ever knew the identities of 2 other people. If one courier was caught, the broader web of the resistance remained dark. Betty mastered the physical spycraft of the operation by weaponizing the occupier's sexism. Dressed in tailored suits and high heels, she routinely charmed German soldiers into carrying her heavy, weapon-filled suitcases right through military checkpoints. Cécile managed the communications. To verify unknown contacts in crowded cafes, she used a verification system, a torn Parisian metro ticket. Only the person holding the exact matching jagged half could be trusted with the smuggled documents. Through these disciplined, decentralized tactics, this female-led espionnage ring became the logistical backbone of the French resistance, keeping the entire operation armed and connected. This level of organization drew the attention of Lucien Roti, a zealous French police inspector running a ruthless task force hunting down the communist underground. Yet even as they tracked these masterminds, the police failed to understand who they were hunting. Inspector Rote's men reduced the women to superficial fashion notes on report cards, tracking suspects by their Angora wool dresses or naming them after metro stations. By February 1942, the streets of Paris felt increasingly hostile. The women began glancing over their shoulders, realizing they were being trailed through metro stations. Fearing their network was about to collapse, they made a desperate push for the Gare Montparnasse, trying to secure train tickets to escape. But the scale of the police surveillance net proved too much. Before the women could board those trains, Rattay dispatched 60 inspectors at night, launching synchronized raids across Paris to rip the network apart. The aftermath of the mid-February raids was devastating. Safe houses were ransacked, forged documents and explosives were seized, and over 100 resistance members were dragged into detention. Inside the holding cells, the physical brutality was severe. The Gestapo and French police relied on beatings and threats to extract names, but the women countered with a disciplined psychological defense. They uniformly leaned into the sexism that had protected them for so long. They played the role of the naive woman. They insisted they had no interest in politics, claiming they were just holding parcels for total strangers, completely unaware of the contents. By holding that line together, their shared silence protected the broader network. The police assumed they had dismantled the leadership, unaware that the women they held were the leadership. Their silence ensured the wider resistance survived. Nearly a year later, on the snowy morning of January 24, 1943, 230 of these captured women were grouped together and loaded onto cattle cars. This transport became known as Le Convoi des 41,000. It holds a grim distinction. During the entire 4-year occupation of France, this was the only train to transport female French resistors directly to the Nazi death camps. The moment they passed behind the barbed wire, their physical war ended. Now they faced a grueling psychological war, simply to remain human in a system engineered to strip away their identities. The deep, intimate friendships they had forged in the shadows of Paris became their final weapon. By sharing rations and mourning every loss together, they turned mutual dependency into a method of survival, ensuring that for some, the fascism